Well, it's that time of the week again for Sterlo's wrap-up. An interesting round 5 to dig through. Peter Sterling, as always, alongside me. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, James.
Let's get stuck into it. Go back to Thursday night. We're in the nation's capital for this one. The Raiders chasing win number 1 for 2018. And it wasn't easy, but they did eventually get there. 26 points to 10 getting home against the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs.
Really good win, this one, their first of the season. And yes, it wasn't an easy one because they pretty much nearly ran out of personnel towards the end. I think they had one player on the interchange at the end of this game. And they're up against the Canterbury Bankstown side that I thought struggled during the course of the game. But when Kieran Foran scored that try, they actually got a little bit of momentum. And the key moment came not long after that when Will Hopewade failed to score from a bomb next to the posts. That would have made it 12-all. A minute later, Jared Croker scores, and instead of being 12-all, it was 18-6, and that was pretty much the ball game then. But I thought a really good showing from the Raiders. Aidan Caesar was outstanding. Sam Williams went off the field, so even a little bit more pressure went back on his kicking game, but Aidan Caesar was landing it on a sixpence. And the kind of performance that I think we should expect more of from Aidan Caesar. I've always liked him. I said on the Sunday Footy Show that I thought he could be the Blake Green of this Canberra Raiders side. Blake Austin will come back into the team this year with Sam Williams on the sideline. But I think confidence that Aidan Caesar got out of that performance really augurs well for him for the rest of the season. I just thought it was a really good performance all round from the Raiders. They all contributed. Joe Tarpany, I thought, had his best game in a Canberra jersey as well. And a couple of little plays here just summed up the kind of effort that went through the Canberra Raiders outfit. There you can see on Josh Morris, Tarpany coming in, show of strength. All of a sudden, instead of the Bulldog getting back in the field to play, it's another set of 6 coming out to the Canberra side. And there he is again, I think the main antagonist there, enforcing another line dropout. That was the kind of effort we saw across the board from the Canberra Raiders. Nothing soft about that performance. I thought at one stage when we watched Ricky Stewart on the sideline that he might be coming out to play because he looked energetic, he looked ready to go.
I think he wanted to. Go forward to Friday night, the early kick-off, the Sharks and the Roosters. This was at Shark Park. Not often do you see Cronulla side beaten by 18 points, but that's how it finished, 28-10. And the kicking of Cooper Cronk, you talk about Aidan Caesar having it on a string, very much the same for the Roosters, number 7.
And Luke Keary as well. You know, he put that kick through there for the try for Manu. And it's a really good win for the Roosters, who would have been particularly disappointed with their form against the Warriors a week previous. We know how difficult Cronulla are to beat on their home turf. But I thought the Roosters always looked in control, but it was the kicking game that really was the difference. Great work from Cooper Cronk and from Luke Keary. And, you know, the scoreline says that this was a pretty dominant result. I don't know if that was exactly the case, but I'm not saying that it flatters the Roosters either. I just thought it was a really good win against good opposition, and you know, the combinations for the Roosters just continue to look better on a weekly basis, taking out the Warriors' performance the week earlier.
It leaves the Sharks at the moment well outside the 8-2 wins from their first 5 games. Many concerns in your eyes?
Well, they're unsettled at the moment, Brace, because they can't get all of their players on the park at the same time. Matt Moylan played in this game, played at fullback, so Hodkinson was alongside Chad Townsend, but no Josh Dugan. Now, I'm assuming that when Dugan comes back, he will probably go back to fullback, Matt Moylan into the halves. So it's been a kind of a disrupted start in regards to their high-profile personnel. When things settle down for them a little bit more and they again get to work on combinations, Cronulla should get better.
Well, the VB Friday night footy was at Cogra, and it was, geez, what a hard-fought affair it ended up being. The Dragons were coming in hoping to win 5 straight to start the season, and they looked like they were set to do so early on, Pete. But the Bunnies, their traditional rivals, they pushed them all the way to the death.
Yes, it's such an entertaining game as well, and there was a real fatigue element to this game which added to it. The Dragons got away to a good lead. When you find a bit of open space, you want it to be Matt Duffy coming up on your shoulder. You want a speed man, and he raced away. And now there, 16 points to 2. But Cody Walker got his side back into it. You felt at half-time, because the lead wasn't a huge one in relation to how much ball the Dragons had, you felt that South Sydney were going to get opportunities. But they didn't come until fairly late in this game, and you know, they came home with a wet sail. Greg Inglis scoring there to put them very close. Unfortunately for Cody Walker, it wasn't fair. He dropped the football in the last couple of minutes when they were in prime attacking position to maybe steal a victory. But I just saw a really good performance from both teams. I know Phil Gould said that he felt that the South Sydney side would have beaten most other teams in the competition with that kind of performance. So the Dragons needed to be good again to keep their unbeaten record intact, and they were.
Good way to celebrate game 250 for the awkward thing in Jason Nightingale, wasn't it?
Very much so, and he came up with some huge plays, and he's just been a really reliable player during the whole course of his career. But this play here, to hang on to Damien Cook by the jersey, at that stage of the game, it was huge, as was this on his opposing winger. When he got turned inside out here, now it's easy to miss that tackle when you're not in a good position to make the tackle, but he was able to get himself in the right spot, force the error. 250 games, that's the only surviving member of the 2010 Dragons side that won the competition, and he's played 33 tests as well. It's been some career.
Quick thought, top of the table, rightfully so, the Dragons, premiership favourites?
Well, yeah, on what we've seen.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not great at putting favourites into place, but it's no fluke they're on the top of the ladder.
Yep, they've got a very complete side at the moment. The Tigers and Storm with the early kick-off in 2 games in New Zealand on Saturday. They'd already played once this year. It was a narrow victory to the Tigers. This was the big test, though, Pete, to see if it was a fluke or not. And clearly it wasn't, because they got up 11-10 the time.
They passed the test with flying colours, and it was very similar to their win earlier in the season, where they just had to fight it out, be patient, and be confident that their defence was going to get them home, and it did. Melbourne were very poor in this game in regards to their ball control. Asafa Solomona dropped the football 4th tackle of the game, and it didn't get a whole lot better as the game progressed. Benji Marshall stepped up when somebody needed to take on the responsibility of that field goal, and he nailed it. Just a really resilient performance from the West Tigers. They're doing everything right. They've got Josh Reynolds to come back into this lineup, and it's going to be very, very difficult for Benji Marshall to be dropped from this side. I want you to have a look at this late in the game and the effort involved. Now, the kick goes across. Just watch Benji in the 6 jersey. Makes a tackle there. Gets up. Makes that tackle. Ball stays live. He's up again on his feet and comes in on Cameron Munster to make that tackle. Now, that's when you talk about effort.
Yep.
Coaches are looking for effort. They're looking for effort on effort. They don't often see effort on effort on effort. And that's why it's going to be tough for Benji Marshall to be taken out of this run on side to accommodate a new player coming in, because he's exemplifying the way that the West Tigers are approaching their football with a lot of energy, a lot of desire and a lot of hunger.
He's been great to watch, hasn't he? The Melbourne Storm, a lot of people putting it down to the fact that the Cooper Cronk departure has really hurt them. Brodie Croft, they're big shoes to fill. Is he struggling to fill them?
Oh, he had a shocker. You know, and with all due respect, he's only had a handful of games, but he had the proverbial. And you know, the one thing that was disappointing is that he didn't learn as the game progressed. You know, there was so much pressure coming up on his outside that eventually he had to either stand deeper or not throw the pass at all. To me, that is a confidence crisis right there. It goes over his head and he looks at his winger. He had to catch that. And even this was a poor play. You know, he was 43 metres out late in the game. He was never going to kick that field goal. I was surprised that Cameron Smith actually threw the long ball back to him to take that. Smart play from Tuilola here to realise that if he got his foot back, all of a sudden he comes back to the 20 and an extra tackle. Benji Marshall kicked the field goal basically on the end of that. Very un-Melbourne-like performance. I don't want to pick on Brodie Croft, but there's a decision to be made by Craig Bellamy as how he advances. But he did say that Brodie Croft was not Robinson Crusoe. There are a lot of players who spilled a lot of football and played in a very unlike Melbourne way.
Yep. Okay, well, interesting to see them outside the 8 at the moment. Uncharted waters for the Storm. That was the first of the 2 games in New Zealand. The second was the home side, the Warriors. And boy, oh boy, 5 games and 5 wins to start the year. Their best ever to kick off a season. 22-12 against the Cowboys side, Peter Sterling, that's now lost 4 on the trot.
They have, and you know there are concerns there. There's no doubt about that. But you know this Warriors team, they led 18-0 in this game in the first half. It just looked fantastic. I wish that Fusatua wouldn't go so close to the dead ball line when he scores tries, and he's got plenty of them this season. But they're a really good football team, this Warriors. They're a different side. We keep saying it to what we've seen in the past. And again, during the course of this contest, they had to defend a couple of sets in a row on their own line, and they did it well. Now, they'd have been disappointed with their second half defence because the Cowboys did come back at them. Lovely little simple run around there, led to a try to Ben Hampton. They got close. A couple of late penalties really helped the Warriors. But good performance in front of a very appreciative home crowd. 5 from 5, best start ever for the Warriors, and I don't see it stopping. I think that, they are now on course to play finals football for the first season in a long time. The Cowboys, there's criticism there. They do look to lack genuine speed. Lachlan Coote comes back into the team. That will help the playmakers. Jonathan Thurston is a metre off the pace, which can be understandable when you consider he was out for a long, long time, hasn't been back that long. But, there's some questions being asked about this Cowboys side because I think our expectations with the fact that they played finals in the grand final last year and were welcoming back Matt Scott and Jonathan Thurston, I think we all kind of thought, well, they'll be better and they'll pick up where they left off. That hasn't happened. Well,
the Cowboys well outside the top 8. So too the Broncos now after a couple of losses on the trot after losing to the Titans. Then it was the Newcastle Knights, 15 points to 10. Big crowd in Newcastle to see the Knights impressively bounce back from that heavy defeat in Wollongong to the Dragons the previous week, where people, Pete, were probably starting to see some cracks develop and worrying that maybe their strong start wasn't as strong as they'd hoped.
Yeah, look, the scorelines in the last 2 games weren't flattering to the Knights, but I wasn't that disappointed. They conceded a couple just before half-time, which really hurt them last week. So I didn't think their form coming into this game was that bad, but they needed in front of a home crowd to get back in winning ways and get back to a defensive effort that carries you through the NRL competition. They were really good in this game. They lose this game last year. And you kind of thought, well, maybe Brisbane might score a late try under the post here and there'll be heartbreak. A couple of Kenny Dowell mistakes late in the game kind of gifted an opportunity to the Brisbane Broncos. But in the end, under the urgings of Mitchell Pearce and some brilliance from Kalen Ponga and a really hard-working team around them, they got the job done. There was a big crowd there at Hunter Stadium. There'll be a bigger one next time because they've got a really good football team to cheer this year.
Do the Broncos look like a top 8 team to you, or are they going to struggle to make the finals?
Look, there's quality there, but I think the jury is well and truly out on the Brisbane Broncos, and I know that the focus always goes onto the halves. Anthony Milford did some great things in this game, but he butchered 2 tries as well, and that kind of is his game at the moment. I'm still not convinced about Cody Nikorima being I thought for a long time that he was an interchange player that could come on and really change the game. I don't know about wearing the number 7 on his back for a full 80 minutes. But that's, I think it's unfair to just pick on those guys. But the one area they lack to me is a kicking game. That does come back to the halves generally. We've seen how important the kicking game has been in some of the matches we've already looked at. Aiden Caesar, Cooper Cronk and that. Brisbane can't match that. They don't have that. And I think in today's game, you're giving other teams a real head start.
There was one Queensland team that did win a match over the weekend, Pete, that being the Gold Coast Titans, 32 points to 20 over an inconsistent Manly side that's just so hard to read.
No, Tom Trbojevic is.
That hurts.
There's no doubt about that. They're a different football team, although Dylan Walker was welcome back in this game, and they got back in it 22-20 with 20 minutes to go, or 15 minutes to go in this game. So the game was in the balance, but it was the Gold Coast Titans who held it together, went on to score 2 late tries. And at this side, who had 54 points put on them a couple of weeks ago, you just thought, well, they're in for a long season. But they've now won a couple in a row in pretty entertaining and, I think, circumstances that have shown that he's got a good football team to work with here, Garth Brennan. They are now the best performed Queensland team after 5 weeks. I wouldn't have predicted that. I thought it was a really good win up in Gladstone.
Is depth always their issue, the Titans?
Well, they've got a little bit more depth there than what they've had in the past. And in this game, one thing they had to cover, Dale Copley left the field. Bryce Cartwright actually came in and played at centre. Now, I haven't seen Bryce Cartwright play too much centre before. So it wasn't as though it was all smooth sailing. They had to make some changes on the run. Good win. Manly, without Tom Trbojevic, aren't as dangerous. And the Gold Coast Titans were able to back up a very impressive performance against Brisbane last week with a good win this week.
There's only one team in the competition without a win after 5 rounds, and Peter Sterling, sorry to tell you, your Parramatta Eels 12 points to 6 for the second time going down to the Panthers to kick off the season. And everyone's just asking where it's all going wrong. Was it the Panthers just too good again?
Well, I think defensively they just frustrated Parramatta out of this game. You know, Parramatta had ample opportunity in the second 40 minutes to win this game. They just couldn't break down the defence. You know, there's the kick. There's the way that they had to attack this Panther side, who were coming up fast on the outside. You drop through a few of those type of kicks in early, and all of a sudden there's not so much urgency in the defence racing up, because you put them in two minds. They can't come up too quickly, because if a kick goes in, I can't turn around and chase. I just thought Parramatta lacked variety with the football in the second half. All the good things were there, the effort, the attitude. You know, it was certainly an improvement in those areas from what we've seen previously, but there was still no competition points out of it. And now we're getting to, I don't like to use the word desperate stage, but when you're 0-5 and you've got a tough trip against the Raiders down in Canberra next week, you've got to find some wins somewhere, or otherwise, you know, they're now giving the Warriors and the Dragons 10 points head start, and the West Tigers 8. Not where we expected them to be. Good signs against Penrith. Now I think they've just got to be a little bit smarter. They've got some good ball control. Their discipline was a little bit better. Now we need more variety with the football.
The Panthers, you mentioned the defence and that effort in the second half.
Yeah.
They hold out a team that had well and truly more ball. We're seeing it from these top teams, aren't we, that the defence is setting up those victories, and we saw it again in this match.
Well, the thing I really liked about this Penrith performance is late in the game, when they had every right to be out on their feet, they still came up with tackles when they look like they're in all sorts of strife. You know, one-on-ones close to the line. Now, Parramatta were camped down this end of the field the whole second half, and they went close on occasions, but Penrith got enough bodies there in desperate situations to get to the 80th minute and defend their way to a victory. So a really solid performance from the Panthers, who were great in North Queensland the week before, and now at ANZ Stadium they defended their way to a win, and nothing gives a team more confidence than your defence getting you home in a tight match.
The Panthers looking very good, 4-1 to start the year, and the Titans are waiting them at the moment. Peter Sterling, always good fun on a Monday to wrap things up.
Nice to see you, James.
As always, thank you, Pete. That is Sterlo's wrap after 5 rounds. Yes, we're 20% of the way through the home and away season.